Greetings, everybody, and welcome to this awesome webinar about this year's Global Fintech Accelerator. As you know, my name is Catherine Miller, and I head up marketing at Matchy. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Roy Teo and Jan Ryan Muller. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But before we begin, I just want to go through a few things. First of all, at the bottom of your screen, there is an icon for Q&A. If you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask Jan or myself or Roy during the course of this discussion, please post your question in there, and we will get to a dedicated Q&A section at the end of our discussion. Also, I just want to thank you all for joining. I see we've got people who have joined us from all over the world, so appreciate you being here from your different time zones. And without much further ado, I would like to ask Roy and Jan to please introduce yourselves to our guests today.
Right, hello everyone. My name is Roy. So I'm from MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is also the organization or institutions that is organizing the Singapore Fintech Festival, where the Global Fintech Hackcelerator is part of the whole festival. So this is, together with my team, I think we've been running this for 2 years already. This will be our 3rd year. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the Singapore Fintech Festival slightly later on. But my main role within MAS is to look at fintech and innovation, obviously, is one of them. My second role is looking at financial center development, which takes care of all the banks as well. Yep.
Hi, my name is Jan. I'm the head and founder of KPMG's Digital Village. We are supporting MAS on this journey this year again. We started last. It was very exciting. We had a lot of success in the last year, especially on the adoption side. And we want to replicate this again this year. So really happy, thankful to be here today, and very excited about this webinar.
Great. So Roy, I'm going to kick off with you. Could you tell us a bit more about this year's Singapore Fintech Festival and how it's going to be different from previous years?
First of all, it's the 3rd year that we are organizing the Singapore Fintech Festival. We started the Singapore Fintech Festival in 2016. Actually, believe it or not, it is part of an experiment that we wanted to do internally in MES. We thought that we'd just organize a simple conference where we can bring people together and discuss about fintech. That was in 2016, and my target then was to just organize one conference that is for 1,000 people. But lo and behold, in 2016, we have more than 14,000 people coming throughout the week. So that was a very good turnout. But what was even more exciting, and maybe because KPMG did a good job in terms of the accelerator, we had more than 30,000 people coming through last year. So this year, we are looking at 3 different concepts of collaboration. Just going back to the previous slide, looking at how can we better connect, collaborate, and co-create with the different ecosystem within the platform. And this year will be a very exciting year for us as well, because it is also happening during the week where ASEAN Leaders Summit is happening in Singapore. So it means that all the ASEAN leaders, together with 8 other leaders around the world, will be in Singapore meeting different people. So hopefully they will just make a detour and come to visit us at the Singapore Fintech Festival this year. Last year we had a few VIPs coming through. We had the Finance Minister of India. We had Christine Lagarde from IMF, and we also have Queen Maxima from the Netherlands, who visited or spoke at our conference. So that was a very exciting year last year. This year will bring you an even more exciting program. Looking at the events calendar on your screen right now, you can see that throughout the whole week, there are multiple events happening. We have the Fintech Conference and Exhibition, which is the staple within the Fintech Festival. It will happen on 3 days, 12, 13, and 14. Within these 3 days, we also have the Global Fintech Accelerator, which we will definitely, Jan will talk a lot more about it later on. We also have new elements, which include the AI in Finance Summit, as well as the match, which is has got nothing to do with Matchy, but it really looks at matching different companies who are looking for funding. So this is something that we are working very closely and looking at how can we make this year's program even better. Of course, if you're a fintech company looking for recognition, the Fintech Awards is something that you want to aim at and see how you can do that even better once you get the award. And then on 15th and 16th of November, which is Thursday and Friday, there will be Innovation Lab Crawl, where you can visit the different innovation labs in Singapore that's open for publics to visit. So it started off with a one-day Innovation Lab Crawl previously, but because it was very well received by a lot of people, and they said that, can we have more time to visit more labs? So this year, we are opening the lab crawl for over 2 days so that more people can take a look at what's happening in the innovation labs in Singapore. And it is also within these 2 days that other industry workshops will take place, and there will be different workshops happening throughout the nation and throughout the city, and you can just visit them as and when they are organized. So in terms of the content focus area, you can see from the deck in the current slide that there are quite a number of focus areas that we look at. For example, artificial intelligence, which is why we had a specific AI in Finance Summit program, and that's where we focus a lot more on what artificial intelligence means to fintech, means to financial institution, means to the financial sector. And of course, a big, huge popular topic is on blockchain and DLT, moving away from the usual conversation about Bitcoin and all that, but how can blockchain and DLT be a focus area within our financial services sector? And there's a lot of interesting projects that we are working on together with the industry. This is where we'll bring in all the different expertise to talk about that. Of course, we also have future of banking. This is something that I think for a central bank or for people working in fintech would be interested in. And then we have other areas such as insurtech, capital markets, big topic on financial inclusion. In fact, we have dedicated almost a whole day on financial inclusion. And of course, not running away from fintech, we have other topics such as payments, tech risk, investment. One area that we want to do, focus a lot more, and this is in line with what is happening during that week, is ASEAN Leaders Summit. So we want to have a topic covering ASEAN and talking about regional connectivity. So doing all this, these are the focus areas for us, but we will be inviting star speakers, inspirational speakers, speakers coming on board, and have leaders coming on board to have dialogues on stage. And of course, something that we added this year is, if you do get your exhibition or conference pass early, you will have access to behind the scenes fireside chats with some of these star speakers. So do get your passes early so that you have access to this. And these are limited because we want to make sure that these behind the scene fireside chats are small in size, and we don't want it to be such a big group. So broadly, those are the few things that is going to happen within the Singapore Fintech Festival this year. It's going to be, again, packed with a lot of exciting activity, and make sure that if for those coming, make sure that you book your airfare hotel early, because this is a very busy period in Singapore, and we hope that you have a good stay in Singapore. And I forgot to mention something which is extremely important, which is something important to us as Singaporean and in Singapore or in Asia, is food. So part of the FinTech conference is free flow of food from 8 a.m. onwards to about 6 p.m. So we don't have the concept of lunchtime tea break. We basically have a concept of all-day dining. As and when you feel like eating, just go and grab something to eat. And it's not for those sorry for those coming from the European or the Western side, we are not talking about sandwiches or hamburgers. It's real food. And because of the whole ASEAN theme, you will be able to taste then all the different ASEAN food. So just give you a glimpse, last year we had food like satay, that local delights, or chili crab for those who know Singapore well. So these are the things that you can enjoy. And for fintech companies, the pricing for the Singapore Fintech Festival is really low. If you're from overseas, it's $499. But if you are based out of ASEAN, is 299 only, and that is in Sing dollars. So you convert that into US dollar, that is even much lower. And this is, again, reminder, 3-day conference pass with food included. So with that, I think that's pretty much what I have for the FinTech Festival. If you need to know more about the FinTech Festival, of course, the website will give you a lot more information. And as and when we get updates on our speakers list, the website or the mobile website will be updated.
Thank you so much, Roy. That is a huge amount of insight, and there's clearly nowhere else to be from the 12th to the 16th of November this year. Count me in. So let's get back to the Hackcelerator. There are some other Hackcelerators and acceleration programs out there in the market. How can you differentiate the Global Fintech Hackcelerator from those? What makes it different?
Okay, correction. You have a lot of hackathons, you have a lot of accelerators, but you don't have many accelerators.
Right.
This is probably the first and only Global Fintech Hackcelerator that you will find anywhere in the world. But what was unique about this was when we first started the program in 2016, we wanted to look at what people are doing in terms of hackathon, what people are doing in terms of accelerators. They are great, but more often than not, they are really not meeting some of the problems that our financial institutions are facing. So in 2016, we came up with the idea of how about we go to our financial institutions and ask them exactly what are the problems you are trying to solve. So we actually went through an exercise to go out to all our financial institutions as well as people in the financial sector and ask them what kind of problems do you want people to help you to solve. And they came back with a lot of problem statements, and that was when we first started off with 100 problem statements that we published from the industry. So remember, these are real problems. So with the real problem statements that we collected from the industry, we then went out to look for fintech companies who have solutions that can solve these problems. So what we try to achieve here is really looking at how can we solve industry problems with solutions that are being developed by the fintech companies. And putting them through the program, they can then fine-tune the solutions to meet the demand or the demand from these financial institutions. And what we do during this period of about 8 to 12 weeks is for the financial institutions who have provided the problem statements to come in and help to mentor and help to guide these fintech companies who will then be able to provide solutions that meet their needs. So hopefully at the end of the whole Hackcelerator programs, many of these companies will then can continue to work with these financial institutions and then bring that solutions to the financial institutions and implement it. What you really want as a fintech company is to see your solutions being implemented in a real life scenario. And this is what the whole Global Fintech Hackcelerator is all about.
No, absolutely. Can you give us an idea about the categories? The categories are similar to last year, but the problem statements have changed a bit. Can you talk us through some of the problem statements that we're seeing this year?
Yeah, so we started off with 100 problem statements in 2016. And as we go along, as we move along and we started working with KPMG, we started to work to see how we can better refine the problem statements such that fintech companies are able to then meet those needs better. And this is where last year we started to streamline some, and this year again we look at the problem statements provided by the financial institutions. We have updated them. Some have been solved, so we have removed them from the list of problem statements. So right now we have close to about 80 of the problem statements focusing on 3 areas, which is InsurTech, financial inclusion, RegTech, and SupTech. Of course, if any of the problem statements doesn't fall into these 3 category or areas, we then put them into general. So don't worry if you are not an InsurTech company or not a financial inclusion company or not a RegTech or SupTech company. There are still problem statements within the financial industry that are still waiting for you to help them to solve. So if you're a fintech company, I would encourage you to take a look at these problem statements to see whether what you're doing currently is able to solve them. Because if you're able to solve them, you almost have a client waiting for you. So this is a very good opportunity for you.
Great. Can you give us some examples of some of the exciting problem statements that have come up this year? Some of the problems from the financial institutions?
Yeah, so just let me read some of the problem statements that we have. I mean, there are 80 of them. So it's published on our website. If you have time, take a look at them. I just want to just bring out some of these problem statements. For example, in terms of insurance, we have one that says, how can we automate the claims process for insurers to reduce potential human error while quickening payouts? So that is one of the example of InsurTech. If we then look at financial inclusion type of solution, or even in terms of RegTech and SupTech, this is one particular one for RegTech. Let me see. It says, how do we develop a system that tracks and monitor counterparty risk and market exposure in real time, taking into account sanctions, AML, KYC data, and regulatory rules, as well as to mitigate risk and exposure. So these are some of the interesting, but yet very difficult problem statements that financial institutions are facing. So this whole idea is really for fintech companies, don't design something that you think there is a problem to solve, but really look at these problems. If you have a good solution to help them to solve it, come forward. We're happy to see how we can help you to bring it to fruition. And KPMG is good at bringing you to market, whether is it in Singapore or beyond Singapore.
Yes, they are. Good point. So we collaborated on this Hackcelerator with you last year and with KPMG Digital Village, and there were some phenomenal firms that were shortlisted, and there are some excellent success stories from last year. And I'd really love to share what some of our past participants had to say and some of the success stories from years before, so that the firms that are planning to enter this year have got some idea of how this Hackcelerator can really change business.
So you can see on your screen some of the what the participants have said. I think what are the key area where people have found it very useful is the fact that they are really working with real problems. And this gives our fintech companies almost a great hope that their products will go into full production. So besides these three that you see on screen, there are maybe two other ones that I can bring to show why that is a good one. So one of them is Smartfolios. In fact, Smartfolios has recently been acquired by a company called Finetics, which is a global company providing sales and advisory software to financial institutions. So they are our past years, in fact, in 2017, our past years participant, and shortly after that, they already got acquired. So for those who are looking for exit, it could be a good avenue for you to think about, because what Global Fintech Hackcelerator gives you is a platform for you to showcase your solutions to the world. Look at the number of people coming through, look at the number of people who are actually, and we put all your pitches on our YouTube channel. So there will be a lot of people that will be looking at what you are presenting, and it gives you that opportunity to showcase your solutions. And of course, subtly, the fact that the Singapore Fintech Festival and the Global Fintech Hackcelerator is organized by MAS, it does give some credibility in the whole process. The other company that we found it quite interesting was AID Tech. In fact, ATech is right now partnering with some of the NGOs to see how they can pilot a project, for example, with Red Cross for food, medical, and transport aid distribution using blockchain technology. So it is very interesting and something that we hope to see more companies coming forward to see how they can provide solutions to problems that are looking for solutions.
Very interesting. Okay, so I think it's time to start actually getting into the grips of this year's Global Fintech Hackcelerator. Let's look at the program and the timeline. And Jan, I would ask you if you could share with us what our participants that are online today and what the fintechs around the world who could possibly enter, what they can expect from this year's Hackcelerator?
So I just want to highlight a few points on what Roy was saying earlier. So this year, the focus is really on ASEAN. So we actually, from these 80 industry problem statements we collected, most of them actually are basically collected throughout ASEAN financial services, from financial services institutes. But it's quite interesting because, you know, it really enables startups coming to Singapore to scale immediately into the wider parts of ASEAN. And that's why we have to focus on ASEAN this year. And that's really excites me to be part of this second year now of this Fintech Hackcelerator. So we run it like last year, you know, we put these 80 industry problem statements now on the website, and now, you know, startups can apply for the individual statements. They have till 15th of June to put their applications in. And right after, we're actually going out and, you know, scouting for and selecting the top 20. Once we have the top 20, that's basically where we start and inviting the startups to come to Singapore for the first week and really, you know, working with us, get a quick introduction, and very quickly we will assign mentors, industry mentors to these startups that they can start contextualizing their solutions to the local market. And that's something that was very unique last year and highly successful. So the reason why we have like Stream and Kicker and Ustra and Smartfolios, why are these startups were so successful, is because very early we paired them with industry mentors. And that's something very special, which only the Singapore FinTech Festival program, in this case the Hackcelerator, actually provides. So once again, I encourage everyone out there, go on their website, sign up for it, pick the problem statements you want to solve, and see the opportunity, because this year is not only Singapore, this year we're looking into ASEAN, ASEAN-wide financial services institutions.
Excellent, thank you. We do get a lot of questions constantly about the program element of the Hackcelerator. So it's 12 weeks. Could you run us through in a bit more detail about what happens during the program phase?
So as I mentioned before, the first and most important is we'd like to invite you to come to Singapore, and for this you get also some cash to make this happen. 20,000 Singapore dollar for the ones who are invited to come to Singapore. And then really within 1 week, we talk you through a little bit more in details about local specifics here of ASEAN and especially Singapore. And subsequently, we'll pair you with mentors. You can already meet your mentors. And the feedback we got last year was that actually the startups who came here were overwhelmed by the response of the industry who wanted to talk with them. And it's like one of the feedback we got, like, give us a little bit more time, because it seems like that every financial institution that somehow wants to meet us and understand more in detail what we're trying to do. So actually that generates a lot of leads for these startups already in the first week. And then obviously subsequently we are looking into, you know, building a more contextualized solution, which then they can present during the FinTech Festival, during on this Monday. And then basically we will select the top 3, and the top 3 get an award of 50,000 Singapore dollar each. But in any case, the top 20 are already winners, because all of them, doesn't matter if you are number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4, all of them got paired with Financial Services Institute after, and somehow they're working already on prototypes. And as I said before, some of the testimonial you have shown us is someone who actually very successful right now here, thankfully to this program, which was set up by MS.
Okay. I mean, it's obvious that if you're a fintech company out there and you've got a solution that can solve one of the problem statements, you should be entering this Hackcelerator this year. So in order to give you a little bit of insight into how to make sure you've got the best application possible, I'm going to ask you, Jan, to give a few tips to the fintechs on how to craft a really high quality response and something that will impress the judges.
Yeah, so unfortunately, even that, you know, last year in the webinar, when I really emphasized on the fact, please don't give us your sales pitch and just upload it, you know, it's very hard for us, you know, having, you know, last year more than 600 applications and read all of them in detail and try to understand what you're trying to tell us. You need to be very clear about, and doesn't need many words, but just clear about how your solution would solve this. Keep it simple, but keep it crisp and contextualized. Don't just upload something, which most of your actually startups did, some, boilerplate, coming up with your general explanation. Then you think that we will understand what you're trying to tell us. That won't work. Just to be very clear.
Okay. So keep it short and clear and to the point, and really, motivate why your solution deserves to be selected. Looking at the delivery capabilities of the firms, how important is it for them to show their proof points and the delivery capabilities of the team?
So that's equally important. Obviously, very important is the solution itself, and subsequently it's also important to show that you have the right team and also the right team of advisors behind who is backing up this. So all of this is part of, which will help us making the decision and identifying the top 20. So looking at the solution itself, but also looking at the capabilities you bring onto the table is equally important. So it's also clear that you need to mention this. But again, it doesn't need to be much. Just keep it, the highlights, if you can see it, and then basically it makes it much easier for us to select you. Maybe Roy, you want to add what you have seen last year, which was sometimes a bit confusing. So please, clear and crisp.
Yeah, I think the judges going through so many entries is going to be very difficult for them. And what usually stand out is people who can provide proposals or even their write-up in a very clean and clear manner. And if you can just if you have a way to basically showcase your solution without getting into too much of details, I think that will be best. And I think the keyword is already on the slide, which is succinct. Keep it succinct, keep it really, really crisp, and make sure that you want to showcase what you want to showcase, and make sure, very important, that it addresses the problem statements that was published on our website. The key thing is, because you can have very good solution, but if you don't meet the problem statement, that is where we have difficulty in pairing you with the industry mentors. And that is sometimes very difficult for us, because we did see some very good solution, but the fact that it is something that is not in need by the industry, we had to let it go. But it doesn't mean that the solution wasn't good. In fact, I think we agree that some of the solutions that we let go were quite good, but it's just not the purpose of the Hackcelerator. Perhaps then we channel that to the Fintech Awards. There could be an opportunity for that as well.
Okay. Is it possible for the firms to enter both the Fintech Awards and the Hackcelerator?
Yes, you can actually do as many as you want. They are not mutually exclusive. So you can submit as a Fintech Awards, you can submit at the Fintech Hackcelerator. And for those who are coming from ASEAN, there's also a ASEAN Pitch Fest that you can also participate in. So basically, if you want to participate in as many as you want, there are companies who have been in both programs before, so it's not mutually exclusive. And there are examples last year that you can be in both.
Okay, but let's focus on the Hackcelerator because that's what this webinar is about. Getting back to that, who are the judges? Who's going to be scoring and judging these entries that come through? And are there scoring criteria that you guys can share with us at this point?
So we selected already, industry, mentors, decision makers in various financial services institution, from various financial services institution. And as you said, as we discussed before, obviously the scoring is really about the solution. So how applicable is the solution to the problem statement? Okay. Then obviously we're looking at the capability of the team. Okay. And this gives us a pretty good understanding really to do some first judgment on the solution itself. Yeah. And that's basically one of the key factors.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add on. We also look at the uniqueness of the solution as well. I think that's quite key, because we are looking at innovation here. So we want to look at how uniquely the problems are being solved. So that's one area. The other one, obviously, is the business model, whether is it sustainable? and does it provide opportunity for growth? I think we can't have one business that is just solving the problem, but then you realize that it has no avenue for growth. So we want our companies to be able to grow as well. So that's one of the area that we look at. Of course, the composition of the team is important as well. That's what we look at. And just going back on your earlier question about the judges, I think the judges come from a wide range of expertise, and they are able to, and in fact, they are global judges as well. So we have judges from different parts of the world, not just those based in Singapore. And that is part of the whole selection process. And on the actual demo day itself, which is on the 14th of November, that's where they will then present to a panel of judges accordingly. Is it 14th? Oh, 12th of November. Yeah, I'm getting confused. So, that's where they present to a panel of judges, and they can then, and these judges are key people who are influencers in the industry. So they are very important. As to who the judges are, we usually don't disclose the names until the end of the program, so that you guys don't go and harass them.
Good thinking. Are any of them from some of the financial institutions that participated to give the problem statements?
We do have, yes.
Okay, interesting. So definitely take note of what those problem statements are and make sure that your solutions are applicable.
Exactly.
What are the benefits? You know, a lot of people often leave things to the last minute, and we get an influx of entries in the last 24 hours for challenges like this. But there are actually benefits for those firms that enter prior to the deadline. And when I say prior, I mean, you know, weeks before, starting from now. What kind of, you know, what are those benefits really? And I would just like to mention that it's, as Matchy is validating your entries, if we have time, we can actually go through your application and contact you and let you know if there's anything that doesn't make sense or any gaps in your application where we feel you could actually add some extra information. However, if you're one of the people that comes through in the last 24 hours, we typically don't have that time, and then that's your entry, whatever you've entered. So I'd really like to appeal to you to consider applying before the last week, so that we also have some time to engage with you and help you actually get a better application if we can. And then just to cut off this discussion about the applications, there's a couple of tips in terms of what you should definitely not do. And it does go back to, in terms of applying at the last minute, don't rush through the whole application. That is just one of the worst things you can do, and we can often see it. One of the typical signs is that firms will cut and paste information that's on their website, which doesn't really differentiate them in any way and doesn't give you a real opportunity to showcase to your advantage and motivate why your solution is applicable, if it's just information that everybody is aware of already. And definitely don't provide an incomplete application. That is just one of the worst things you can do. Often firms will, especially if they're applying at the last minute, will get a section that's got kind of 3 words instead of a whole paragraph or motivation, and that's just terrible. And for us, that would be incomplete, and that counts against you. So make sure you've got enough time and put this in your diary so that you can actually plan ahead and enter with plenty of time to spare. Do you guys want to add anything else in terms of what fintech should not do during the application phase?
There's one more thing maybe I want to add. Make sure that you are ready to commit when you submit your application, and because we do see sometimes people are not too committed in the whole program, and that's where you lose out a lot of the value that KPMG as well as the industry mentors are trying to bring to you. So if you do get selected, and I hope this is not the last time I'll be speaking to you, but if you do get selected, make sure that you are able to commit and make full use of the 12 weeks that KPMG and Matchy is putting together for the teams, because this is extremely important. it impacts a lot. In fact, from last year's program, we saw that those who actually put in the most effort actually got a much better results at the end of it. Stay calm, but continue to work hard during that period.
Just keep focused and dedicated to the process, because the process works, as we can see from previous years. So, okay, hopefully by now everyone knows to enter in advance and what to do to stand out to the judges. But now let's talk about what happens if you're actually shortlisted as one of the top 20 firms. Roy and Jan, can you give us some insight into what the finalists can expect this year?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's a bit of money. Actually, 20,000, as I said before, really to come here and be part of it. But I think more important is, and that's what we really highlighted before, is the success of the adoption. You know, we see the screens, the Moxtras, you know, the smart folios who got even acquired. This wouldn't have happened if they went through this program. So it's very important that actually the biggest outcome of this program is the adoption opportunity. And that's much more than, you know, the cash dividend, which is here right in the center of the screen, but and getting connected with industry leaders in such a short time frame is one of its kind.
That's feedback I've had from the firms from last year. They just said the network that they created for themselves within such a short space of time was just uncomparable with any program that they'd been through before. So that is definitely something to look at. And it sounds like that network's actually much bigger this year than it was even last year. So it's a huge. We even
provide, just to an extent, we even provide research material, right? So if you want to know, you're coming, let's say, with a startup coming from San Francisco, and I really wanted to understand how many checks, you know, are actually in Singapore, you know, handed out on a daily basis. These kind of inputs we really could provide that really help them to contextualize their pitch. And this was very, you know, helpful for, you know, startups coming from overseas, really understand more about the different market needs. So we are providing all this research material if required.
Yeah. And maybe just to add on, well, although the cash stipend is right in the middle of the screen, but the first point is about adoption and collaboration, which is very, very key. And the ability to then interact with the regulator as a fintech company is also very key. And we are committed, with MAS, we are committed to the program. So we spend a lot of time with the team as well. If they have any regulatory issues, questions that we can help, we will help out as much as possible. Something that may not be on the screen is that if you are a finalist at the program, you are also able to exhibit at the Fintech conference exhibition as well. So you will be given a free booth to exhibit your solutions there, and so that you can not just showcase your solutions to the mentors or the financial institutions, but actually to the 30,000 people who are coming through to the Singapore Festival. So I would encourage the team who gets into the finals, make sure that you have enough stamina to go through the 3 days, because it's really punishing. So exercise well and keep your stamina.
And eat that good Singapore food.
And eat a good Singapore food, so that you can eat as much calories as you can during the 3 days. So before that, make sure that you keep your weight down.
Okay, so I mean, let's talk about the top 3. So when we get to the demo days section of the FinTech Festival, a top 3 will be selected. How does this work? Who selects them? What do they win? Can you give us some more info about Demo Day?
Yep, so the 20 finalists, during the 12 weeks, one of the things that they will be groomed and grilled is on the way they do their demo, because we found that it is very key, and it could be the tilting point whether they win or not. So during the demo day, they are put on a stage facing thousands of people, with the judges hidden amongst, not hidden, but they are behind the audience and looking at the presenter presenting on stage. And we are very brutal in the way that we conduct the demo day, pitch day, in a way that we keep the timing very, very strict. Meaning that if you're given a 5 minutes timing, you have to complete in 5 minutes time. And that is very strict. We do it in such a way that we turn off your mics, we turn off your lights. So lights off, mics off. So we will be very strict on that. So again, going back to the same point that we made in terms of your application, you need to make it clear, sharp, and succinct. Within the time frame that you're given, make sure that you're able to deliver the demo, you're able to showcase your solution. And the judges, last year we had how many judges? 14 judges. So it's a large number of judging panel. Now, of course, you will then say that, well, it's just that few minutes on stage. It's a bit difficult for me to explain everything. We do give an opportunity for the judges to meet you on a not one-to-one, is 14-to-1 basis, meaning that all 14 judges will be talking to you face-to-face. So you see some of the industry people, very famous people, talking to you face-to-face. So that's where they will ask you questions so that you can elaborate on them further on your solution.
Okay. And will the top 3 be announced live at the demo day, or will they be told later?
They will be told later at the Fintech Awards, which is happening on the 14th of November.
Okay, great. And what do the top 3 win? Do they win anything in addition to what the top 20 win?
Yeah, so the top 20 will get 20,000 Sing dollars for them to tide through that 3 months, including coming to Singapore. Like what Yan said earlier, if you're the top 3, you also get an additional 50,000 Sing dollars as a prize money. And I think money is really the least that they should worry about. It's really about getting the opportunity to work with financial institutions, collaboration, the connection that they build, and even the opportunity to exit their companies, which is what happened to Smart Photos.
It's basically tough to add on this. We are opening the door of almost every financial institute in Singapore for these startups.
Not just Singapore though. There are a lot of financial institutions coming from all over the world.
All over the world, we open it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe I'll just add on a bit. What's unique here in Singapore is if you're thinking about the market in Singapore, then Singapore is a small market. We have, for those who don't quite know Singapore, we only have about 5.5 or 5.6 million people living in Singapore. So if you're doing for Singapore market, then don't do it because it is not something that you want to. But really, what is really useful is we have more than 30 innovation labs based out of Singapore. And this is where if you are able to work with the financial institutions, the world is your oysters, you can actually then through the financial institutions, deploy your solutions globally. And this is what happened to quite a number of them already working with the financial institutions here.
Okay, that's very exciting. In terms of the people that are invited to the demo day, is that everyone that's part of the FinTech Festival, everyone who's got a ticket to the FinTech Festival, or are there specific companies, financial institutions, VCs, a network like that that's invited specifically to watch the demos at the demo day?
Well, the demo day is open to all, but of course, during the demo day, we will invite certain special guests who are who we think that will be relevant to them, which include the VCs, the PEs. In fact, last year we had a few ministers sitting within the crowd. We didn't make a big fuss out of it. So there will be people who may not want to be known to be there, but we brought in quite a few key people. In fact, some of the private banks have brought their clients through the Hackcelerator to just look at investment opportunities, but we can't make it public because these are people who are really, who wants to stay private. So, and after that, the conversation is private and we leave it as it is.
This is a massive opportunity. I mean, it's huge. It's really huge. So I implore everybody who has a solution that fits any of the 80 problem statements to submit it as soon as you can, and we'll give you feedback if we've got the time. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we move on to the Q&A section?
No? I think we are actually good and ready for the Q&A. Besides, start to reply.
Yeah. Wait, no more.
Yeah.
We don't have too much time, so I'm just going to tackle a few questions. One of the questions that keeps coming through, and it's come through from multiple people, are you accepting ideas for the Hackcelerator?
Are we accepting
ideas? I think not unless you can develop your ideas very quickly by the time we start the program.
Okay.
You need to, this program is about adoption. So you don't want to kill ideas, certainly not. But we really want to help you in being successful, bring you to the financial services institutes, and then obviously try to help you to deploy your solution. If you just have an idea, this is very, very difficult. So I would prefer maybe this year, keep working on your idea. More than happy to maybe outside, maybe even do the Singapore Fintech Festival, approach us that we maybe can give you some feedback, but it's probably not something we would like, recommend you to, hope that this will work out.
Yeah, okay. But then again, remember, if you have an idea, but you can implement it in a very short time, this is not something impossible. This is all about innovation, right? Everything is possible. So as long as you make sure that you're committed to it, I think we can see how that can happen. But at the point of your submission, we should see something quite concrete that you can deliver. So this is something that we want to stress. We don't want to rule out the fact that people may have an idea now, but by 15th of June, they can come up with something brilliant, because it is still about slightly less, maybe 3 weeks away. And 3 weeks, wonders can happen and miracle can happen. So I'm just saying that if you are able to deliver something by 15th of June, go for it. But if you can't, then like what Jan said, you might just want to think about how to develop your ideas further for next year's program.
Okay. I've got another question that's just come in from Mario. Can a company apply to multiple problem statements? Or would this be perceived as diluting the solution's value proposition?
With the same solution?
Yes, if it's applicable.
You can, but I'll be wondering how can that be? But you can.
Okay, let's see if I get another response. Okay, so the answer is basically go through all the problem statements and pick the one that's most applicable. And I think that's what, something that Matchy can also do during the validation process. If we feel that you've put your solution into a problem statement that isn't 100% the right match, we can also get back to you and suggest that we move it to another one. So if you apply ahead of time, that's one of the things we can help you with. So guys, we're actually out of time. So I would suggest if there are any other questions that you'd really like answered, if you could email them to the email address that's up on the screen at the moment, and we will get back to you. There's just one more we just want to tackle. It says here, is the product or solution, must it be entered in English? I think yes, we would appreciate that they're entered in English. Roy, is there any way that they could be entered in another language?
Roy, what kind of languages are you speaking?
Because it is going to be assessed by an industry panel, I would strongly suggest that you put it in English, because in any other language, we may misunderstand it.
Okay. And then I did hear back from Mario with regards to the first question, and that was about, can you enter into multiple problem statements? So he's actually come back to say what he was suggesting is that if there's a company that has multiple solutions, can they have multiple entries into different problem statements with different solutions?
I'm sure. So that was the exact question that I asked. Is it because there is multiple solutions? If it is multiple solutions, yes, you can do that.
Okay, great. Okay, well, Roy and Jan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
It was brilliant. This is such a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing the entries as they come in. As I mentioned before, please use the email address if you do have any additional questions. Otherwise, we're looking forward to seeing your entries pop in. Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Jan. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.